In the movie Cars, we see a ton of different, well, cars, and in typical Pixar fashion, when creating these characters, they definitely did some research and based most of these cars off real cars. Some research was done to create these characters out of actual vehicles. So in that case, what are the real cars that inspired the cars from Pixar's Cars? Well, let's find out. Sheriff is based off the 1949 Ford Mercury 8 police car. This car brand lasted from 1938 to 2010, and the Mercury was used as a cop car until the 1990s, when police stations switched to the Crown Vic.
LSPD, stop your vehicle now!
But as bad guys have gotten faster, they now use Dodge Chargers and Ford Explorers. Fillmore is a 1960s Volkswagen Type 2 bus. So bringing up this topic, I have a question. Why was the Volkswagen bus so tied to hippies and love in the 60s? Well, compared to most vehicles of the day, the buses were really affordable for young people. And because they were traveling all over the country doing hippie stuff, they needed a vehicle that had a lot of space for all their stuff.
It's got more room than a regular wagon, yet it costs hundreds of dollars less.
Lizzie is based off the Model T, and apparently she's really old. I thought she was like the grandchild of the statue guy Stanley, but apparently that's his wife. So how is she alive and young looking and he's dead? How old can cars be before they die in Minecraft? Like, Mater was there in the 60s, so is he like 70 now? And how about Doc? He must be like 100 years old, but he acts like some guy in his 70s that's retired.
Shoot, get out of here!
I have no clue. Sarge is based off the 1941 Jeep, which has some interesting historical implications in that case, but the Jeep was invented in the 1930s for World War II. The government needed a general purpose vehicle, something that was all-terrain and sturdy. So a company called Willys Overland made one, which was called Willys Quad, or Willys MB. The MB was adopted in 1941, but soldiers informally referred to it as a general purpose vehicle, or GP for short. So people would say Jeep, and that's how it became known as Jeep. After the war, the civilian Jeep was introduced, which led Jeep to become a publicly used vehicle for civilian use.
You're so ugly you could be a modern art masterpiece.
Flo is based off the 1957 GM Motorama show car.
It's here at the miracle of the General Motors Motorama.
There's only one problem though, there is no 57 Motorama. So some people have said that maybe she's a 1951 Buick or a 55 Lincoln Futura. Some people have pointed out similarities between Al's car from Toy Story 2 and Flo, sort of looking the same. It might be a stretch. And I also went down a rabbit hole with Flo because apparently there's some Flo lore. So in a deleted scene from the original Cars, there was a karaoke night at Radiator Springs, and while Flo was singing, Lightning asked Ramon how did they meet, and he said that Flo used to be in a singing group called the Motorama Girls, which was kind of like the Andrews Sisters, and when the girls visited Radiator Springs, she went to Ramon's to get a paint job, and when he saw her, he dropped his brush and he said, "You're too good for me to paint. I can't touch a classic." Dude, what am I doing with my life? But yeah, the Motorama Girls would leave Radiator Springs the next day, and she would stay with him. Very wholesome. And speaking of the car of the hour, Ramon is a 1959 Chevy Impala. Obviously, he's a lowrider car. These types of cars started in the 1940s, but really didn't take shape until the 70s. That's when we got the hydraulic suspension system, and for a few decades, it was an integral part of Americana. Doc Hudson is based on the 1951 Hudson Hornet, which at one point was the fastest car out there in real life, always competing in races and was extremely popular with Americans. But in the coming years, Hudson failed to innovate the Hornet, instead deciding to keep its old design. There appears to be some parallels between the story of Doc and the actual car. So in 1954, the same year that Doc had his accident, Hudson had to merge with American Motors Corporation to prevent bankruptcy, but sadly the Hudson brand was phased out in 1957. Oh yeah, and one more crazy thing. Herb Thomas was behind the wheel, winning both 1951 and 1953, but he was beat out in 1954 by Lee Petty, who drove this car, the 1970 Plymouth Superbird. It was banned the exact same year that it was made, due to car emission laws at the time, and its driver, Lee Petty, is the father of Richard Petty, the person that voices Strip Weathers. That's so deep. Sadly, Carrera is based off the 2002 Porsche 911, and actually 2 years ago they made a special edition of the 911 1911 based on her, and it sold for like $3 million. I guess some car collector was a big fan of cars also. And the race that Lightning and Sally have is pretty realistic, I'd say, because she can definitely hit the same speed that Lightning can, if he's based off the car that we'll discuss in a moment. Mater is based off the 1951 Harvester tow truck. This truck really took off in the post-World War II economic boom for its affordability and reliability, but the company began facing hardships with rising manufacturing costs in the 70s, and filed for bankruptcy in 1984. Although the agricultural division was sold to Tenneco, and to this day the brand lives on selling farming vehicles. The origin of Mater's name is also interesting. While doing some research for cars, John Lasseter met a man named Keever at the Lowe's Speedway in 2001, and with a heavy southern accent that I'm not gonna attempt to recreate, he introduced himself as Mater, which was what he was called as a kid because he threw tomatoes, but with the accent, it caused the word tomato to come out as tomater. So that's how he got his full name, Tomater.
Mater? Yeah, like tomato, but without the tuh.
Now of course, unlike other NASCARs on the road, Lightning is different and has a sleeker, flatter look, meaning that he isn't your traditional NASCAR. Most NASCARs are built off stock cars like the Mustang, Camaro, and even Camrys. Instead, McQueen's said to be based off the Corvette C6. Now in terms of speed, the C6 is actually pretty comparable to NASCAR's, as it can hit speeds of 190 miles per hour, compared to NASCAR's hitting 200. Also, I didn't know this, but Lightning McQueen's name actually doesn't come from Steve McQueen, the actor. The name is actually based off Pixar animator Glenn McQueen, who passed away during the production of Finding Nemo. Alright, no pun intended, but it's time for the lightning round. Mac is based on the iconic Mack Superliner trucks. Tex Dynaco is a 1975 Cadillac Coupe de Ville. Chick Hicks is based on the 1987 Buick Regal. And then we have the import cars. Wingo is a 2004 Acura RSX. DJ's a little hard to tell, honestly. He could be a Suzuki Sidekick or a 2004 Scion XB. Boost looks like a Nissan Silvia S15. And Snot Rod is easily a Dodge Challenger. Luigi is based off the Fiat 500, introduced in 1957 as an affordable car.
Il felice slogan della Topolino nel 36, più che mai valido oggi per la nuova 500.
Maya and Tia are based off the 1992 Mazda Miata. Oh, I see what you did there. Did you get it? Guido kind of looks like a BMW Isetta, which is a super tiny car. Red, of course, is based off a 1950s fire truck, and we don't know the exact model, but he kind of looks like this one. The bugs are love bugs. Get it? Get it? We also got the Jay Leno car, called Jay Limo.
I don't know what's harder to find, Lightning McQueen or crew chief who'll work with him.
Who used to be a talk show host, but now he's a car enthusiast. And then there's also a car based on Arnold. It seems like in this universe he's still governor. And yeah, that about covers it. Let me know which car you didn't know was which car, and if there's any others that I missed. Other than that, that's it.